female messenger, Sarama, who was chanting a mantra. They became afraid and therefore they are living in the planet called as Rasatal. And this is the final verse of this chapter. Beneath Rasatal is another planetary system known as Patal or Nagaloka, where there are many demoniac serpents, the masters of Nagaloka, such as Shankha, Kulika, Mahashankha, Shweta, Dhananjaya, Dhritarashtra, Shankhachuda, Kambala, Ashwatara, and Devadatta. The chief among them is Vasuki. They are all extremely angry and they have many hoods. Some snakes 5 hoods, some 7, some 10. Others 100, others 1,000. These hoods are bedecked with valuable gems, and the light emanating from the gems illuminate the entire planetary system of Bilaswarga. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shri Uta Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Vishakhan Vitamsha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshitarine Vancha Kalpatarobhisha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shibhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate gire yat kripatam ham vande Shri Gurum Dinatare. Hare Krishna. So we're discussing something from this 5th canto and this chapter. So previously we were discussing about the prayers which are different inhabitants of different varshas in Jambudweep they were offering. And now the discussion has went down to the subterranean heavenly planets. So we have discussed this previously. There are 3 kinds of heavenly planets that are there. One is in the higher planetary systems, which we call as the Indralok or the Swargalok. One is in the middle planetary systems where apart from Bharat Varsha, all other Varshas. So there also situation is like heavenly planets. And the third one is the one mentioned here, that is Bilaswarga, or the subterranean below the middle planetary systems or the lower planetary systems, where also the situation is like that of heavenly planets. Now, of course, there's a difference there. When we say situation is like that of heavenly planet, or they're called as Swarga, there may be opulence that may be there, but these people are, as we read the description also, they are forgetful of the position of the Lord. And that's why they are always fearful. In the higher planetary systems also opulences are there, but at the same time they are engaged in worship of the Lord. They may not be pure devotees, but still they are considerate of the position of the Lord. But lower planetary systems, that part is missing, and that's why we see in all the different verses, they are always fearful of Indra, or always fearful of the different curses by the denizens of the higher planetary systems. Even though they are very powerful, and even though the strength is given, and even though it's given that how it's lighted up, now the lighting also we see is not by the sunlight, but by the jewels that are there on the heads of the or hoods of the snakes. That is what lights up the entire place. So opulence is there, definitely, no doubt. And that's why it's mentioned as Bila Swarga, or heavenly planets in the lower systems or lower planetary systems. So now the description that is given, we know lower planetary, there are 7 planetary systems higher and 7 are lower. It starts from Atal Loka, then Vital Loka, then Sutal Loka. Sutal Loka is the place, as we discussed yesterday, Bali Maharaj, where he resides. Then there is the description that comes in these verses, Talatal Loka, then Mahatal Loka, then Rasatal Loka, where the snakes are residing in Mahatal and Rasatal, and finally the Patal Loka, which is the actual hell we talk about, or which the description will come in the coming chapters of the varieties of punishments that are offered, or the actual hellish conditions that are there. That comes in the Patal Loka, or the lowest planetary system that is there. So now today's discussion will discuss about specifically the verse number 29 we discussed, which gives a description about Mahatal. It talks about that below Talatal is the Mahatwal, which is the abode of the many hooded snakes that are there. And it's mentioned they are descendants of Kadru, and they are always very, very angry. And then the different kinds of snakes are also mentioned in Mahatal. These snakes like Kuhuka, Takshak, Kalia, and Sushena are there. These varieties are there. And one of these varieties, Takshak, was the one snake that was supposed to bite Parikshit Maharaj, or that bit Parikshit Maharaj after the 7 days. When that son of the Brahmana cursed Parikshit Maharaj that he'll be bitten by a snake, that was the Takshak snake. And that was a snake that came after 7 days and bit Parikshit Maharaj. So that lives in the Mahatal. That's what we can understand from here. And then it's mentioned the snakes in Mahatal are always disturbed by fear of Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu. But although they are full of anxiety, some of them nevertheless sport with their wives, children, friends, and relatives. So this is something very, very interesting to understand, that how, and this is what Prabhupada compares with material life also, that how people, even though they are disturbed by so many different things, or so many fears are there. And in the material world also we say, padam padam yat vibdam na tesham, that at every step there is danger. At every step there is something or the other which leads to the fear of people. But still people become illusioned. Like these snakes here, who are always disturbed, always thinking about Garuda. Anytime Garuda can come and take them or come and kill them. But still they forget, become illusioned, and then keep on engaging in sports with whatever the wives, children, friends, or whatever snakes have the wives, so-called wives and children. So they engage in sports with those relatives and those people. So we see one thing which is very, very clear is the material life is like that. You go to higher planetary systems, you go to middle planetary systems, or the lower planetary systems, illusion is always there. Wherever it is, wherever people are, or wherever the living entities are there, they are always illusion. And that illusion is made clear that even in these planetary systems, the same illusion is there, or the same kind of person's distraction is there away from the service of the Lord. Now we see some similar description comes, or some description comes, which is given by Shukdev Goswami, where he gives a description of the material life or the family life in the second canto. Or we know the second canto is the place when the second canto begins. That's where Shukdev Goswami starts speaking. And it's here, as Prabhupada explains, that this is the way of material life. Even if one lives in the most abominable condition, he still thinks himself happy with his so-called wife, children, friends, and relatives. Similar description is given by Shukdev Goswami about people in this world, or the conditioned souls in this world. So we know the past time when Parikshit Maharaj was there, he left the entire kingdom and he went to the bank of Ganga and he was fasting till death. And he was asking various questions to all the assembled sages in that place. Basically, he wanted to hear Krishna Katha, or he wanted to hear about the Lord, and that's how he wanted to leave his body. Even though he was a pure devotee itself, right from birth, he was a pure devotee, he got darshan of the Lord. But still, at that time, he was setting an example that how a person should quit his body. So he is there on the banks of the Ganges, and he asked few questions to all the sages who are assembled there. And we know those famous questions. He asked that what is the duty of everyone in general, and then he asked specific duty of a person who is about to die. So he was asking these questions. One was that what is the duty of everyone in this world? What should be the ultimate duty of everyone? And specifically, for a person is about to die, basically about himself, and he was asking for people in general that what is a specific duty of person who is about to die very shortly. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that everyone should ask this question because everyone will meet with death one or the other day. And we never know when it is going to come. So now the interesting point is when he asks all this and then he speaks, and then we know the entire sages were there, and finally Shukdev Goswami comes into the assembly, and everyone greets up to respect Shukdev Goswami because they could understand he's a realized soul. He's a very, very effulgent personality, great personality. And he was made to sit on the Vyasasana, or he was the one who was made to sit as the leader of the assembly. So when Parikshit Maharaj asks, when he sees Parikshit Maharaj sees him, he asks this question, and he also asks this, that what should a man do, or what is the content for a man to hear, for a man to chant, man to remember. But he says, basically he says, yash shotravyam atho japyam yad kartavyam nibhi prabhu. That what is the content for a person to hear, what is the content for a person to japya, means to speak, to chant. What should a person remember, what should a person do, and what should a person not do. Basically first he says what should a person remember, what should a person chant. And last he says, Bruhi yad va viparyayam. Viparyayam means what are the things he should avoid. These were the two questions of Parikshit Maharaj, from which, as Prabhupada writes in the purport also, that the actual Srimad Bhagavatam begins from there, and Shukdev Goswami starts speaking from there. And this is the answer he gives in the entire Bhagavatam, or the entire Bhagavatam is based on the answers to these questions. So now the interesting thing, why we are discussing all this, the interesting thing is when Shukdev Goswami begins his discussion, when Parikshit Maharaj asks all these questions, first of all, Shukdev Goswami thanks the questionnaire, or thanks Parikshit Maharaj for asking such questions, or asking questions which are beneficial for everyone in the human society. And then he starts speaking a series of shlokas. So now Parikshit Maharaj's question was, what should a person do? What should a person hear? What should a person chant? What should a person remember? And then he also asked, what should a person not do? Interesting thing is, Shukdev Goswami begins with the part of what a person shouldn't do, or how a person is stuck in this material world. And that is very relevant to what we have been discussing today, the way of material life. A person being attached, and Shukdev Goswami gives this description in the second canto beginning. So he speaks this famous shloka, he speaks, Shrotavyadini Rajendra Niram Santi Sahasrasha Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamedina. So it's interesting that Shukdev Goswami begins the entire talk with those people who are not at all practicing spirituality, and what are the subject matters for them. Because Parikshit was asking what are the subject matters a person should hear, person should chant. And Shukdev Goswami is saying Shrotavyadini, means the subject matters of hearing for people in general. What are these people hearing, and what a person, basically is telling what a person should not do. This is very interesting. We heard in another session also, even in Nectar of Instructions, when it begins, the second verse of the Nectar of Instructions speaks about what are the things a person should avoid. Or the 6 things, Atyahara Prayasasya Prajalpo Niyamagraha Janasangasya Laulyam Cha Shadbir Bhakti Vinashyati. Speaks about the 6 things which a person should avoid, and then it speaks about the 6 things which a person should do. Utsahan, Nishyan, Dhairyat, like that. And same way, this is what I heard from devotees, that this is the way Bhagavatam is also spoken, or this is the way the Shukdev Goswami has spoken. First, he speaks about those things which should be avoided, or these are the things which have to be avoided, and then he'll speak about what should a person do, what should be the duty of a person. Basically, the point being, until he avoids these things, there is no point of him making advancement in spirituality. So here in this verse, or this verse is 212. One second, I'll just open the verse. He says, Shota Vyadini Rajendra Ninam Santi Sahasrasa Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamedina. So he's describing about these people, or he's describing about people in this material world. He's saying that they have numerous subject matters for hearing. Shota Vyadini, hundreds. Santi Sahasrasha means matters. Thousands of subject matters they have for hearing. And who are these kind of people? Apashyatam Atma Tattvam. Atma Tattva, what is Atma Tattva? Basically the knowledge of body and soul. So these people, they are apashyatam, they are blind to this knowledge. Then how do they have thousands of matter to hear? What are the subject matters to hear, and what are these kind of people? He says these are Griheshu Grihamedina. And as we have heard of many times, there are two kinds of householders that are there. One is called as grahastha, or who lives with his wife, children, family, and keep the Lord in the center. Or the purpose of living in a household is to worship the Lord. And the other is these kind of people, as we read in this purport also. Even the snakes also belong to the same category here, who are too much attached to all these people and they keep the Lord aside, or they are not at all concerned about the Lord. And when we see this word that is mentioned, Griha Medina. So Medi means, Prabhupada explains, Medi means jealousy. Now, the natural consequence of this is when a person makes his family the center of his life, or his wife, children, and all as the center of life, and keeps the Lord aside, then naturally he becomes jealous. So Prabhupada writes, so one Grahemedi is jealous of another Grahemedi. Because it was but obvious that every Grahemedi will be selfish. Selfish about himself and centered around the people around him. Same way in a community or in a family, one friend or one relative becomes jealous of another relative. One society becomes jealous of another society, then community, then nation, and this is how we see in the world things happen. And that's why we see the consequence of that is what the current situation of wars and fighting and all these things ultimately comes to this point of Grahamedis. And now these Grahamedis, Prabhupada is writing here that they have many topics to hear, or many topics to talk. Topics which are actually this XXX and so many other things. And they keep on speaking. They think that these are the ones which are the subject matters of hearing. But then this is what, as Prabhupada speaks, this is their speaking is just like the croaking of a frog. And what does happen when a frog croaks? It just invites the snake to come there and eat it up. Or basically, percent of the frog dies. And same way, these people are just wasting their time in speaking useless content and ultimately invite death. These are the kind of people who are described as Grahamedis, completely illusioned, who are just attached to their wife or whose life is centered around their wife, children, and all these things, and they forgot everything about spiritual life. And then he speaks that actually the process to hear, what should be the content to hear is about the Supreme Lord, about the pastimes of the Lord, name of the Lord, form of the Lord. But these people, they are ignorant of that fact. Now, Shukdev Goswami continues further. He just doesn't end here. He speaks further about these people. So Parikshit Maharaj's question was, what should be the duty of a person? But he continues telling, what should a person not do? So next verse he speaks, Nidraya Hriyate Naktam Vyavayena Chavavaya Diva Charte Haya Rajan Kutumba Bharane Nave. And this is one of the very favorite shlokas of Prabhupada. In many lectures, we'll hear the last two lines, especially Diva Charte Haya Rajan Kutumba Bharane Nave, where he speaks about how for hearing and what are the activities they do. So this Nidraya Hriyate Naktam means night time they waste in sleeping. One is sleeping and then Vyavayena Chavavaya. Two things they have in the night, that is either life or sleep. And they just waste the night in them. Okay, then what do they do during the daytime? Diva Charte Hai Rajan Kutumba Bharane Nave. Kutumba means the family. So just for taking care of the family, just for feeding the family members, Diva Charte Hai Rajan, or basically they pass the entire day in working very hard just to earn money, just for economic development. Prabhupada translates this word as artha as economic development. Just for this economic development or just for becoming rich, they waste their entire day in working very hard. And night they spend in sex life and sleeping. And this is how these people who are devoid of the knowledge of self-realization, they waste their entire time. In Prabhupada, because that time when he was translating some of the purports of Bhagavatam, he had stayed or he had been for some time in Mumbai. So he gives the classic example of people of that place in those times, like how people travel in the trains, 2 hours they take to travel in the morning. And then the entire day they spend in the office, and in the night they travel back. Again, they take a huge time. And that's how the entire day they waste in those activities. And now we see it's not just Mumbai, every place, even in Bangalore, the same situation is there. Where people waste their entire, these materialistic people, devoid of the knowledge of absolute truth, waste their entire time like that. And that's what Shukdev Goswami is describing here, that these kind of people, they just live their lives like hogs and dogs. And finally, he speaks the third symptom of these people. He speaks these two shlokas, and then he speaks about what are these people attached to them. What attachment of these people? These people waste their time. They people speak over here so many things. But then who did they rely for protection on? Who are they relying for support on in their difficult times? And that Shukdev Goswami says, Deha Patya Kalatradishu Atma Sainyeshu Asatsu Api Tesham Pramatto Nidhanam Pashyanapi na Pashyati. Again, what is the thing? Who are they relying on support? Who are they relying on protection? Because every person needs protection in this world. For a devotee, he understands we have to rely on the Supreme Lord in all the circumstances and all the cases. But these householders, these conditioned souls who are engaged, illusioned in this life, they think that they have their home and family and that is the fort for them, that is the protection for them. So this verse says, Deha Patya Kalatradishu. Deha means the body, Apatya means the byproducts of this body, that is the children. Kalatradishu means Kalatra is the wife, and Adishu means all the others in relation to them, basically the relatives, the family members, X and Y, so forth. What these people saying? Atma Saineshu Asasyapi. These people think that these family members who are actually, in the word Saineshu, they think that these are my soldiers. Or these are the ones who will protect me in the difficult times, in the dangerous times. They are the ones who will take care of me. Asatsopi, even though they are also temporary, but these people think they are the protectors. And then this says, Tesham Pramatta Nidhanam Pashyanapaina Pashyati. It's very amazingly Prabhupada explains this. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see the inevitable destruction. So he tells that how the person has been seeing, he is being relying on these infallible soldiers, or the Bhagavatam compares these wife, children, and all to these. He has seen his fathers, his grandfather pass away, his fathers passed away, the entire family pass away with time. And still he thinks that these people are indestructible, they will never die, they will never pass away. This is one of the greatest illusions that even Yudhishthira Maharaj describes. That how people see every day, they see so many people passing away, but still they think they are eternal. Or still they think nothing will happen to them or the near and dear ones to them. And that is what Shukdev Goswami is describing as, they think that these are the people who are my soldiers. These are the people who will protect me in difficulty. They are the ones who will help me go back wherever, I don't know, not to Godhead, but go back somewhere to hell or whatever. So that's what, of course, they don't understand that they will take them to hell, but that's what they think. And the entire thing is, being illusioned in this way, the person loses his rare human form. A person loses the opportunity to actually make advancement in Krishna consciousness and just being engaged by all these people. Very interesting line Prabhupada writes in this purport. I'll just read that. He says the whole materialistic advancement of human civilization is like the decoration of a dead body. And then he says everyone is a dead body flapping only for a few days, and yet all the energy of human life is being wasted in the decoration of the dead body. So Prabhupada makes a very strong statement. He says everyone is a dead body, flapping only for a few days. Basically, the point is, unless a person understands there is some soul inside, he doesn't believe in the existence of the soul, he is just like a dead person. Because this body is flapping only for the few days means body will work only for a few days. And after that, again, he'll die, again, he'll have to take another body. And then he says, yet all the energy of the human life is being wasted in the decoration of this dead body. Yet they talk about advancement, they talk about civilization, and all the energy is being wasted in this. And this is nothing, this is compared to decoration. What Bhagavatam says, Mandanam Lokaranjana. That this is like the decoration of a dead body and nothing else, which cannot help a person in any way, which can just make him more and more illusioned in this thing. Even Prahlad Maharaj speaks something in this regard. Prahlad Maharaj speaks about that how in this world, if by the Lord, then no one can protect him. That famous shloka he says, Balasya neha sharnam pitrau narsimha nartasya chagdam udanmanti majjatau na taptasya tat prativer ya injateshtas tavad vibho tanubritam twad upekshitana. So Prahlad Maharaj also speaks about this, that how people think that these are the family members, these are the people who will protect me. But he speaks three things that these people can never protect a person. Balasya neha sharnam pitrau narsimha. And then nartasya chagdam udanmanti majjatau na. Majjatau is a ship. So he gives three examples. One, that a child cannot be protected by his father. We see so many examples where the parents are there, the children is there, a small young born baby is there in their laps, and he passes away and they are helpless. They cannot do anything. Another example he gave of a drowning man. No matter how strong the boatman is or whoever it is, he cannot save a drowning man. And the third example he gives of a patient. How much expert the doctor is, whatever he tries, when the time of the person comes, he cannot protect him. So Prahlad Maharaj says, one who has been neglected by the Lord, or one who doesn't have the mercy of the Lord, he cannot be protected by anyone, or no one can protect him. But the point is, people not understanding this become completely illusioned in this world, thinking that these people will protect me, or these infallible soldiers, or sorry, these soldiers who are actually fallible, who are actually meant to die, will be infallible and they will be the ones who will. And this is what the current discussion Prabhupada describes about these snakes, that they also live in this most abominable condition with these wives, children, friends, and relatives, and they also think that these are the ones who will save me. They are also constantly fearful of the Garuda, that is the carrier of Vishnu. But the mistake they made, instead of surrendering to the Lord, because anyone who surrenders to the Lord, Lord protects that person. But they become completely illusioned, thinking that we'll just enjoy here, even though fear is there, but they forget about that fear, or they become illusioned as such. Now, Shukdev Goswami, after describing all this, after describing about the condition of these people who are engaged like this, who are completely illusioned in their life, then he actually speaks what is the solution. Then he speaks to Parikshit Maharaj. So what should a person do? Because this was his original question. What should a person then actually do? Now he speaks this shloka, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma, Bhagwan Ishyo Hari, Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha, Smartavyam Chechatavyam. Meaning now he's telling what should a person actually do. First he explained the condition of these people, how these people are meant to be illusioned and to suffer more and more, be entangled more and more. And that's why he says, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma. That he says, that's why Bharata he's calling to Parikshit Maharaj, descendant of Bharat Maharaj. He says, that's why everyone should engage in just these activities. What is this? Bhagwan Ishwaro Hari, that Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shotavya Kirtitavyascha. That this should be the subject matter of hearing about the Lord, speaking. Kirtitav means chanting the glories of the Lord, remembering the Lord, and Chetavyam, and that can make a person free from all anxieties, free from all worries. Because if a person glorifies the Lord, then he actually becomes free from all worries, because he may die or he may also have to lose his body. Prabhupada explains in that it's not that a devotee doesn't lose his body, but then he is confident or he is peaceful that even after losing this body, he will be engaged in the service of the Lord, or Lord will help protect him to be engaged in his service. And that's why it's mentioned Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma, means Smartavyam Chetavyam. So the point that is mentioned is that how a person becomes completely illusioned and how he can get out of illusion, and that is by engaging in devotional service or engaging in different activities. Now someone may ask, for here Shukdev Goswami explains it further, because someone may say, okay, what about the other processes? Can a person be a karma yogi? Can a person be a jnani, or I should say a karmi or a jnani? What about them? So Shukdev Goswami speaks about only devotional service is the goal, and he speaks in the next verse that what is the purpose of this devotional service? Why should a person engage in hearing about the Lord, speaking about the Lord, remembering about the Lord? And he says, the next shloka, he says, Etavan Sankhya Yogyabhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. He speaks three things, which are very amazing in this verse. He speaks about three things. What are those? One, he speaks Sankhya and Yogyabhyam. Sankhya is those kind of philosophers who engage in Sankhya Yoga, basically like Jnana Yoga, distinguishing between what is matter and what is spirit. So these people, Sankhya yogis who are there, then he says Yogyabhyam, or those who are engaged in Ashtanga Yoga, or knowledge of mystic powers, aspiring for mystic powers. There are another kind of people, Swadharma Parinishtaya, means the followers of Varnashrama Dharma, who are following their Dharma very, very nicely. He says that Janma Labha Parapumsam, ultimately a person gets the highest benediction when Ante Narayana Smriti, when he is able to remember the Supreme Lord. Because the question that may be asked is, okay, you are speaking, these are the subject matters for hearing, these are the subject matters for speaking, then what is the goal of this? The goal is that ultimate success is Ante Narayan Spiti, that through this process a person can remember the Lord. And that's why he speaks, so whatever process a person follows, this should be the goal. And basically he's telling with other processes, we cannot achieve this goal. But later on, he speaks more further on this, and Prabhupada explains in the purport itself that these jnanis who are engaged in cultivation of knowledge, or karmis who are engaged in fruitive activities, karmis, so there is no hope as such because they'll be entangled more and more. But the jnanis might ask that we are in a transcendental process. We are also following a process which is transcendental, which helps us break the cycle of birth and death. So there Prabhupada explained, but even they won't be able to achieve the shelter of the Lord until they get the association of pure devotees. Unless they associate with devotees, they will also be stuck in the cycle, or even if they have attained liberation, they won't attain the shelter of the Supreme Lord. Or they will be also in a very, very dangerous condition. Because the ultimate purpose of life happens, that is Ante Narayan Spriti, happens only when a person gets the association of a pure devotee. And Prabhupada writes this line, he says, this is possible only by the association of pure devotees who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis. So he makes this amazing statement of giving a finishing touch to the entire activities. This is for those who practice their process very nicely. If they practice the process of Jnana Yoga very nicely or the Ashtanga Yoga very nicely, even if they're doing all the things that are needed, still without the association of pure devotees, they cannot get that finishing touch. Here we know the examples of Shanakadi Rishis, Sanat Kumara, and different examples that comes in the scriptures. Of course, they were Jnanis and they were yogis of the highest category of in any process that is there. Only then a person can have the Ante Narayan Spriti, or he can remember the Lord at the end of his life. Now, all this discussion we are having, we are discussing about these people who are stuck in this world and how the goal of life is to surrender to the Lord or to remember the Lord. Otherwise, the person becomes completely illusioned. And from the Bhagavatam itself, we have example of one personality who actually was a devotee at one point. Then he became a materialist, just like these people, enjoying in the company of his wife, children, and all those so on and so forth. And then he later on remembered the Lord again. And that is Gajendra. All of us know that is the example of Gajendra. How this example fits, or how the same things which are mentioned here, he was also engaged in the same activities. But by the mercy of the Lord, by the mercy of his past devotional activities, again by the mercy of devotees, he was again able to remember those prayers and he was able to attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So that pastime is very interesting, where that place is described that he was in the planetary systems. So that mountain that was there, the Trikuta mountain, where Gajendra used to go or Gajendra used to stay, that was in the higher planetary systems, and facilities of enjoyment were very, very high. There were beautiful gardens there were beautiful lakes there. And it's described even the denizens of the heaven, the damsels of the heaven, they used to come there to enjoy, to have sporting pastimes. And that was a place where Gajendra used to stay, or where Gajendra took birth, or Gajendra was staying. And now this person, even though we know the past one offense, he committed one offense to a devotee who cursed him to become an elephant. And he forgot everything about his spiritual life. And he became a complete materialist. So the entire description comes how he was engaged in going about in that place. And he was very strong. Because of his past punya, even karmically, if we talk about in his material sense, he was a very, very strong elephant, it's described. I was reading that description, it's described that when he used to go to the jungle, or when he used to roam around in the jungle, he was the king of that entire jungle, and it's mentioned that it was like he was controlling everyone who was there. Even the tigers, the lions, they used to run away in fear when Gajendra used to come along with his associates. Generally, it's the other way around. It's seen when tiger and all these people come, even if they're in a group, they try to run away from that place or go away from that place. But Gajendra was born so powerful, so strong that tigers, lions, and all kinds of animals used to run away from him in fear. And even the other animals who were there, they were dependent on him, or they used to think that he will protect us, he will not harm us. That is the description is given of Gajendra, who was born very, very powerful, or very, very strong. But the problem is, because of the offense he committed in his previous life, he also forgot everything about spiritual life and he became a complete materialist. So there is described that how he was going around in the forest with his wives, with his associates, and completely illusioned. He forgot everything about spiritual life, just enjoying with them, going around here and there with them, and had no connection with spiritual life altogether. And finally, that pastime comes that one day while he was going with his associates, or while with his wives means many wives he had. Generally, a male elephant, he enjoys his very. It's described he's very lusty. So many wives he had, many associates, and they were going around in a lake in that place that is described as Ritumat. That was a garden. And that lake is described as a very, very beautiful lake where many people used to come, the demigods used to come to enjoy there. And one time he and his associates were going around from that area. They were very thirsty. And all of them decided to take bath in that lake. Or he told that let's go and take bath in this lake. And there is something Prabhupada describes something very interesting. I'll just read that verse. So there he described that when they went inside the lake and they started enjoying inside the lake, Prabhupada gives a very nice description, not Prabhupada, in the verse only, that means Shukdev Goswami gives a very nice description or an analogy to that. He says, like a human being who lacks spiritual knowledge and is to, I'll just read the verse also. This is this is 8 to 26. He says, Sa pushkareno drita shikaram bubhuir nipayayan samsnapayan yatha grihi grihi karenu karabhamscha durmado nachashta krichram kripano jamaya. So here he is speaking about grihini, or the person who is too much, as we mentioned about Grahamedi or grihini, the same term is used. Person too much attached to his family life, to his wives and children. So what was the situation of Gajen that time? He says, like a human being who lacks spiritual knowledge and is too attached to the members of his family, the elephant, being illusioned by the external energy of Krishna, had his wives and children bathe and drink the water. And then he explains, indeed, he raised water from the lake with his trunk and sprayed it over them. He did not mind the hard labor involved in this endeavor. And this is very much compared to the position of a human being or position of people in this material life also. Here it's mentioned that they were very tired before that. They were very exhausted. All of them entered the water. Gajendra, when he bathed in the water, his fatigue was gone. Then he drank the water to extinguish his thirst. And then he started working very hard on taking the water in the trunk, throwing it on his family members just to remove their fatigue, just to remove their thirst. And there was an endeavor involved. It was not that he was easy. He was very tired already, very fatigued already. But here it's mentioned he did not mind the hard labor involved in this endeavor. And this is also compared to the position of a person in this world, how, as we discussed previously, how a person works very hard throughout the day, goes around, gets so many kicks, so many worries, so many troubles, but still he doesn't mind the hard endeavor. Or still he doesn't care for the hard endeavor because he's engaged too much in lust, because he's so lusty or so much illusioned by the material energy of the Lord that he doesn't understand that he's working hard but not for a correct goal. Just like here, Gajendra was working very, very hard just to satisfy his family members. And it's mentioned just like a human being who lacks spiritual knowledge, basically just like a conditioned soul in this world. So now this Gajendra was engaged in this activity, but we know how the fasting continues. And by the will of the providence, that time a crocodile comes and catches him. And that time a crocodile comes and catches his feet. And now it's very interestingly described as I already explained. He was a very, very powerful elephant who was there. So naturally, he was very, very proud of his strength also. So initially, when the crocodile come and caught him, he was not bothered. He thought he's very strong, he's very powerful. And he was illusioned. He had this illusion that all these associates are also with me. What can that crocodile do? And naturally, when the crocodile came and caught him, he struggled hard by his own strength, by his own endeavors. He tried very, very hard to remove the crocodile and not losing hope, thinking that he was very strong, and he was very proud of that fact. And described it continued, this war between, or this fight between the elephant and the crocodile continued for 1000 years, celestial years. Huge time. It's not a 1 or 2 day fight. 1 or 2 days is also huge. Few hours the fight gets over generally in this world. But then for years together, the fight was continuing. And I was hearing some descriptions, it comes in the commentaries, like those people. So first he was engaged in his fight. He used to pull the crocodile up, means he used to try to come out of the water, pull the crocodile up, and crocodile will pull him back. And it continued. And then what happened? The associates who were there, they came, they thought, let us help Gajendra. And Gajendra was also relying on them that these are my soldiers who are there. They are the ones who will protect me. They came, it said they held the previous behind legs of Gajendra. They pulled him out. But the same thing was happening. They were pulling him out little bit and the crocodile was pulling him back. And that way they kept on trying, kept on trying. Everyone tried, but no one was able to save him. Those same people, as we discussed, Deha Patya Kalatradishu. Deha means the own body. He tried with his own body. Apatya, children or the relatives, the family members, they tried. Everyone tried and everyone failed and everyone was exhausted, or everyone thought we cannot save him. And this I heard in one of the lectures. I don't know that is true or not, that the relatives, after some time, they became exhausted. So they went, they took something to eat, again came back, again tried helping him. But he was there, he could not get anything to eat. I don't know the reference of this, but this I heard that they were going and they were refreshing themselves and then coming back. But and then he saw the position of the wives who were there. So the same wives he used to enjoy with, who he used to think that these are the soldiers, these are the people who will protect me. They were just standing on the shore and crying. And naturally, that's the nature of the females. When they see some danger, they just cry. But that's what he realized. That he realized at that time, even these people cannot protect me. And that's why after all this, or after seeing this struggle for more than 1000 years, finally he came to a very, very profound conclusion. This is the verse number 8 to 32, where some sense came upon him. And I'll just read the translation. What he thought, he said, the other elephants who are my friends and relatives could not rescue me from this danger. And then what then to speak of my wives? They cannot do anything. And finally, he says, it is by the will of providence that I have been attacked by this crocodile. And therefore, I shall seek shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always the shelter of everyone, even of great personalities. So one good thing was, because he had that Sukriti from the past, or because he had some pious credits, and as the Lord says, Swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahatto bhayat. That the Lord is the one who protects the person from the greatest danger. In this danger for 1000 years, the friends were trying, the wives were trying, none of them, he could not help himself, even though he was the lord of the entire jungle, very, very powerful elephant. He could not protect himself, the wives could not protect him, the friends could not protect him. And finally, he realized that all these people are not the protectors. All of them are standing here. They were always there with me, but they are just looking helplessly. They cannot do anything. And that's why he came to the conclusion, as it's mentioned in the verse also, Apya aham chatam yami paramparayanam. That there is only paramparayanam, means that supreme parayanam means taking shelter of that person. That was the time he came to this profound conclusion that there is only one protector in this world, and that is the Supreme Lord, and I need to take his shelter. Without taking his shelter, I was relying on these people, but none of them is actually capable of protecting. So this was an interesting thing, that how Gajendra, he came to this conclusion. He remembered all those past activities he had done in his previous life, and he started offering beautiful set of prayers. What is described as the Gajendra prayers of surrender. There is one very interesting thing Prabhupada writes, or Prabhupada explains in that purport. When Gajendra remembered all that, the things he had done, when he became helpless, when he realized, before that is described, he thought for some time, he contemplated for some time. When he became helpless, he saw that these people cannot help me, no one in this world can help me. And then in his contemplation, because of his previous spiritual life, he remembered that there is only one protector, there is only one supreme. And then he remembered the prayers he has chanted in his previous life, or the mantras he has chanted in his previous life, and he started chanting those mantras. So there, one interesting thing Prabhupada writes is about the importance of chanting some mantras. So Prabhupada says, it is imperative, therefore, that all devotees in Krishna consciousness practice chanting some mantras. Now what he's stopping, he explains further, he says, certainly one should chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is the Mahamantra or great mantra. And also one should practice chanting Chintamani Prakra Satmasu, that is the Brahma Samhita, or the Narsimha Stotra, Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimho, Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsimha. Every devotee should practice in order to chant some mantra perfectly, so that even though he may be imperfect in spiritual consciousness in this life, in his next life, he will never forget Krishna consciousness. So because Gajendra chanted that mantra, or Gajendra used to, in his previous life, used to chant some mantras, and that was so much in his mind that he remembered those, he chanted them again. And here Prabhupada is speaking about the importance. Of course, he speaks about the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that is definitely the Mahamantra, and that has to be chanted. But apart from that, also he speaks specifically about two mantras, and he speaks in order to chant some mantra, that any mantra, or basically a Vedic mantra, bona fide mantra, if one practices that mantra, that will help him, definitely help him even in the next life. Even if he is not able to attain perfection, those mantras will help him to remember Krishna or to engage in devotional service even in the next life. Then he says, of course, a devotee should try to perfect his Krishna consciousness in this life. For simply by understanding Krishna's instructions, one can return home. But then he says, even if there is some fall down, practice of Krishna consciousness never goes in vain. And he explains the example of Ajam. Or he focuses on this aspect. First, he focuses on the aspect of remembering or chanting some mantra, which is, he gives few examples in that. And he speaks all the devotional service a person has performed or whatever mantras he has chanted, that will help him remember Krishna in the next life. And of course, at last he says about we should not forget the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra under any circumstance. It will help us in the greatest danger, as we find in the life of Gajendra. So that's how he speaks, or that's how we understand that how a person. So few things we can understand for this, that how a person who is illusioned in this life, how he gets stuck in this cycle of birth and death, thinking that these are the fallible soldiers, these are the soldiers who will protect me. But only by the association of devotees, only by the mercy of devotees, a person comes to spiritual life, and he understands the real purpose of life. Now here, through the example of Gajen, we thought that we also saw that how there are some pitfalls even in spiritual life. Or basically, it's some dangers that how a person, in this world we say material life is full of danger, and in spiritual life also there are some things that have to be avoided basically, or some dangers or pitfalls that are there. And one of them is, as it's in this example, it was evident the offense he had committed to a devotee. And another comes in the Bhagavatam of overexposure to sense gratification. That even for a devotee who is practicing Krishna consciousness, who is trying to think of the Lord, or who has made the Krishna consciousness as the goal of the life, but still there are two pitfalls a devotee has to be very, very careful. And first is he has to avoid the offenses. Because even if he commits offenses, as we understand, we hear the explanation, the entire devotional service he has practiced, that becomes frozen. And the person again starts from step zero, or again forgets everything about devotional life. That's what happened in the case of Gajendra. And another is, even if he's not committing offenses, if he overexposes or if he too much associates with sense gratification, or people engage in sense gratification, that also ruins his spiritual consciousness, or that also spoils his spiritual consciousness. And for a devotee, these two pitfalls are very, very important, because if he engages in these activities, even though he might be practicing devotional service, he might be engaged in different limbs of bhakti, but there is a possibility, again, he may slip down to material consciousness. Again, he may slip down, as here it gives the example of Ajamil. Of course, we know that Ajamil was a son of a Brahmana. He was a very pure purpose. Not exactly, it's not nowhere described that he was practicing pure devotional service. But the point that is mentioned is, whatever he was practicing, just because of that association of a materialist, he lost everything. And he had to wait, or so much time had elapsed where he forgot everything about the spiritual life. And that's why even for practicing sadhaka or practicing devotee, these 2 points a person has to be very careful, so that he again doesn't slip into all these things which we discussed about material life and family life, and doesn't slip away from the path of Krishna consciousness. Because we understand that this is a very, very rare opportunity, a very, very rare chance to get the human form of life, the chance to practice devotional service, and chance to attain the highest goal in his life. But because of these pitfalls, because of these different things, the process will get only delayed further. But of course, we understand finally, whenever some things, even though without will of the person or due to whatever reason it happens, Lord is very merciful. Somehow or the other, the Lord helps the person, comes back to the path, in the case of Gajendra, and remember the things he has practiced previously, or get the previous memories back. And that's how Gajendra, after realizing all this, after understanding all these aspects, he start offering the beautiful prayers which begin with that Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai. What was that? Yataita Chidatmakam Purushayadi Bijaya Pareshaya Vidhimahi. And he continues further that how the Lord, He is the source of everything. He is the one from which whom everything gets created. He is the Bija who is there. And then He is the one from whom all the gross matter, the subtle matter come into place. And then he continues on his beautiful prayers that are there. Where it's clear that even though he was acting, or he was just like previously, just prior to that, he was behaving just like a conditioned soul, just like a materialist. But in those prayers, it's very, very clear that he actually knows, but when he remembers his past, that he was actually a very great devotee, because he speaks about the position of the Lord. He speaks how the Lord is the one who has created everything in this world. He is the one behind the gross and the subtle elements of this world. And He is the one worth taking shelter of. Or He is the one I will take shelter of only Him. And later on, we know the prayers, how he rejects, or he doesn't take shelter of anyone else apart from the Lord Himself. And that way, finally, we know the pastime continues. Lord finally hears his prayers, or when he actually surrenders, Lord immediately comes. It's not that the Lord was waiting before, but Lord was waiting for him to surrender completely. And when he does that, it's described, Lord immediately comes along with the carrier, or along with Garuda, picks him up, kills the crocodile, and takes him back to Godhead. Or he attains the supreme destination that is there. So this is how we see that by the practice, or in the case of Gajendra, even though he was completely illusioned in all these things, but because he had practiced devotional service in his previous life, that helped him come to the right path and attain the highest perfection. But for people in general, as we read the today's verse, who don't have the association of devotees, especially in the subterranean heavenly planets, because no devotee, or of course devotees, as the devotees on the highest level, they are not worried about going anywhere. As the shloka says, Narayana parar sarve na kutashyana bibhyati swarga pavarka narkeshu apitulyartha darshanam. For devotees on that platform, they are not concerned whether they are going to Swarga or whether they are going to Narka. For them, everything is same where they are engaged in the service of the Lord. So for these or for these people, or these demons, we can say, who are living in Mahatal, these snakes, if some devotee goes there, or such devotee goes there and preaches them, only then they have some scope to come, or some hope to come back to devotional service, or to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Because as it's clearly explained, that without the association of devotees, such materialistic person who are completely illusioned by family life, completely illusioned by all these things, cannot attain the ultimate destination, or cannot get out of this entanglement of birth. They'll keep on getting more and more illusioned. And as Krishna describes in the Gita 16th chapter, that what happens to these people who are demoniac, who keeps on engaging in demoniac activities, then the Lord sends them into Naradma. Lord sends them into more and more dangerous or abominable conditions of life. They keep on going down and down in these, from Mahatal to Rasatal, and then finally to Patal. Basically, their suffering keeps on increasing more and more, until and unless they get the association of devotees. So with this, I would like to pause here, and you can take any questions and comments. Yes.
I have one doubt. If someone unknowingly doing the offense, and they never realized that I did this type of activity, but what about that? This can be accepted or not?
So we see, even we can see the pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Like I was hearing this from, I heard this from Harikshat Prabhuji only, that when Prabhupada was very young, we see the pastime in the Prabhupada Leela Amrit also. So Prabhupada was very young. His father gave him those deities that were there, and right from childhood he started worshipping those deities. And it's described he used to keep those. Now, if we start talking about the standard of worship that a deity is supposed to be, it's obvious that in his childhood he might not be following those proper standards, or he might be committing some offenses. But the point is, with time a person has to learn. Of course, his example doesn't match here. I'm just giving understand he was a pure devotee. But the point is, initially someone might do the same activities, the services are given, he might commit offenses. As in the commentaries, it's mentioned, even when it comes to chanting the holy names, everyone begins with offensive chanting only. Unless a person is some Mahabhagavat from previous life, that is different. Everyone begins with offensive chanting. But with time, a person has to learn, understand the offenses, and then he has to make an effort to give up those offenses. So it's not about what a person is committing or how he's doing. With time, that's the entire training all about, that a person learns that what he's doing wrong and how he can improve himself. That's how a person can make advancement in devotional service. Because even offensive chanting will have some benefit. Definitely, there'll be some material benefits for that person who continues offensive chanting. But it won't help him attain the goal we are here for, or attain the destination we are looking for. For that, a person has to learn, even when it comes to chanting, when it comes to the sevas, when it comes to different activities, services we do, that what is the proper way to do those things and how we can correct them. Whatever we have committed out of ignorance, okay, we cannot do anything about that. But with time, a person has to learn and he has to see how he can improve himself and how he can be free from offenses. That's how he'll be able to make advancement. Because initially the Bhagavatam or the purports, Prabhupada himself says that everyone will begin with offensive chanting only. No one can on day one do offenseless chanting. But with time, he should have the desire how to give up those offenses and how to advance in spiritual. But Lord accepts, even in that state, Lord sees the condition of the person, Lord accepts the service rendered by the person, Lord sees the sincerity of the person. But this is up to us, that if you want to make sufficient advancement, then we have to give up the offenses also. Like, okay.
In the case of Bhajan, where do we see the mercy?
No, what I meant, of course, that was the mercy of the Lord himself. Mercy of the devotee means previously in his past, when he was Indradev Maharaj, or he was engaged in practicing all those things. So now that definitely the description is not there, but because of the association of devotees, only a person comes in devotional service. That way I meant. Of course, that time it was the mercy of the Lord that he remembered his past mantras and he said like that. But somewhere or the other, when he began his practice of devotional service, as we read in the Bhagavatam itself, Bhakti Sanjayate Bhakti, that only by the devotee's mercy a person can get devotional service. So in that way, in Gajen's body, of course, that was the mercy of the Lord.
The Krishna researcher means like the sons of Devi and Rama. So Hiranyakashipu and
Hiranyakashipu, the point what the description comes is, he was the master of the entire place. Means he defeated Indra and he took the benediction of Brahma. So he was the lord of the entire place that is there. Now, where he took birth exactly, or what was his place of birth, that I am not very sure about. But he was the master of entire place. Even Indra used to run away in fear, as we hear that when he used to raise his eyebrows, they used to run away. So he was the master of the entire three planetary systems as such. That.
So lower planet entities, how they are living without sunlight? Because without sunlight there is no life. How they are surviving?
Comes now, we read that the hoods on the jewel of the snake, on the hood of the snake, the jewels that are there. So there are snakes there, basically in the lower planet, many kind of snakes that are there. Of course, we cannot compare it with the snakes we see. They are like very big and powerful snakes, strong snakes like that. All in some of the plants we discussed. No, Mahatal, the snake's description comes, and one more plant, I think Rasatal, or one more Talatal. There also those description of snakes are there. So they are the ones who are major. The snakes are the ones who are eating, and different kinds of snakes like Takshak snake and different snakes varieties are given. So they have on their hoods, or one of the category of snakes have on their hoods the jewels that are there. And those jewels are illuminating those lower planetary systems. Or this is how they are getting illuminated. Sunlight is not there, but through those jewels they are getting illuminated. And they are thinking that that is luxury, or they are living in that way completely illusion. That is the description.
So I have this opportunity for lots of colors and translation comes the living is created by the Lord, so there is no betterment partner. So many quotations in the successes that Lord will never create the living things. He will give more sense to come back to God, and if they do these things more than 10 times to people, and some of the so how to understand?
You are asking that how. No, that specific verse, so that is speaking about that how without the mercy of the Lord, no one can be protected. The focus that is there is Prahlad Maharaj is talking about, he is offering those prayers. And he's telling to Narasimha Dev that if your mercy is not there, no one can be protected. That the mortal beings, like he gives the example, these three examples of a boat or the hospital, the doctor who is there, that such people in this world who think that they can be the protector, they can protect someone. So those people cannot protect a person unless the Lord decides to protect him. So Lord is naturally merciful. His point is that if a Lord neglects some person, in the sense if the Lord doesn't decide that not to protect some person, then no one can protect him. We say no that Rakhe Krishna, as that famous saying goes, Rakhe Krishna Mare Krishna Rakhe ke. That one who the Lord decide that this person has to be killed or this person has to die due to whatever reason, then no one can protect him. If the Lord protects the person, then no one can do anything to him. So in that sense, it's mentioned. Of course, the Lord is very merciful in the sense he tries to give the chance to all the living entities to come to devotional service. But those who don't take on to this chance, then, or those who neglect this opportunity, and the Lord, or due to their own karma, they are meant to die, then there is no hope for such person, and no one can protect some person. His point was that no fallible being of this world can protect anyone. That.
In this case, everyone remember this previous pain, previous life, though he has his own influences. That are the largest mercy that he's remembered.
And that is the mercy, no, that due to the offenses, he wasted so much time or so much of thousand. Before that, he was completely into illusion. How a person, such a great devotee, can be into illusion, enjoying with his family and engaged in all these activities? That was because of the offenses. He had to go through that typical phase that as we were recently hearing in that discussion, because of the offenses, he was made to go through a very, very tough time. Either in the illusion and either in that water, when for 1,000 years he was struggling with the crocodile and he was suffering. Finally, when he realized that now my time has come, this crocodile will kill me and no one can protect me, then the Lord finally, because of his previous life, Lord gave him the remembrance. He remembered those mantras and he surrendered to the Lord. So that entire phase he went to, the entire tough situation, was because of the offenses only. And finally, when the thing was removed, then the Lord gave him the remembrance. Yes.
So in descriptions, he remembers your previous life also, just previous
Description, what means it's described is he remembered the mantras. Means there too it's described he remembered the mantras he has chanted and he chanted the same mantras towards the Lord. Basically, remembrance of the mantras, and these, when we read those mantras, so they talk about remembered everything about devotional service, that who was the Lord, what is my position, and all those things, that he is the one who can protect. So that way, the devotional aspect, he remembered everything, the spiritual aspect. Previous life, not exactly, it's mentioned, it's not mentioned.
Okay, so when Lord came to Gajendra, so because Gajendra is the same body
But I read that one second. Gajen didn't give up his body, means what I read, but I have to recap that. Mostly in the same body only the Lord took him, but I have to cross check that. Okay, anything else?
So that he can so whatever offenses that we make, even while chanting in the weeks, we have to undergo something for that.
No. So see, offense are also different kinds of offenses are there. We talk about, first of all, you have read about the offenses. How many rounds you are chanting?
Since last 4 5 days.
Okay. So initially we should try to chant and we should try to focus on the holy name, and that way, when we begin our chanting, when we are able to focus, so then we are able to do it better. We are able to advance slowly and steadily. So we should try to the standards which Prabhupada has given us. Prabhupada has set certain standards that a devotee should rise up to that standards. He should try to improve his quality. And then these things come on a later aspect. like you give the example when we enter a school. So initially we are taught some things, like we are taught some in a junior class. If someone is asked what is 3 minus 5, the teacher may say that does not exist as nothing like that. Only when a person grows up in a school, when he goes to the higher class, then he realizes, okay, there is something called as imaginary number, there is something called as negative and all those things. So same way, initially the focus should be how I can learn the basics, how I can take to it nicely or do the basic things that are there. This comes at a very high level when we have some higher desires, higher goals. Then the person thinks about, okay, there is something called as offenses and how to give it up. Initially we practice, and that way Lord is very pleased by that. At least this person is trying. At least someone is endeavoring in this world to practice Krishna consciousness, be in the association. That also is very, very glorious. So that way it's not, don't worry so much that Lord will do something. A Lord is always very, very merciful. He sees our endeavor, he sees our sincere determination. Only with time we should be sincere enough that now we have to make more and more advancement. When we are sincere, then automatically we'll learn those are the things that needs to be done, that needs to be avoided in that way. Okay, so we should continue. Our, yes.
Right now, I know I don't have a love for the Krishna, but I can sense the hate of this material world. And I just now that consciousness is like, I cannot continue it for life. Like you want to experience it. So when you stand in front of the Lord, there is a hate. Like we are.
Hate means I didn't understand.
Hate means like we are trying to escape this miserable material world.
Okay.
There is actually love for the God, Krishna. So like when we approach the Lord, there is a feeling of some self-interest. Like I don't have love for you, but I don't want this miserable life. So there that I should attach to the Lord, Krishna. That is not there. So that sometimes you not good feeling. Like,
No, so Prabhupada used to say whatever it is, Prabhupada said that when he went to the West and he was successful in his preaching, many people took to Krishna consciousness. So one of the purports he writes that one of the good qualification that they had was they were detached from all the material things. Already they had tried all the material things, already they had done whatever people think enjoyment, and they were detached from that. And that's why it was easy for them to take up to bhakti. So this kind of what you're mentioning, that being detached or those kind of feelings might help us to take to bhakti or to start our practice. But with time, we have to see how we can improve our practice, also how we can develop some attachment. That will come with time. It's not a one-day thing that one day we develop attachment. But of course, if we are detached from thing, at least that will help us to take to bhakti more seriously. We'll understand the futility of the outside world, futility of the things we are doing in the outside world. So we take to bhakti more seriously. We do it more and more with more and more sincerity. And attachment will come only by the mercy of the Lord. When the Lord showers us mercy, then only we'll develop some attachment. Then only we'll be able to make more and more advancement. So that way, but with time, our mood, we should understand we are doing bhakti for pleasing the Lord. With time, that thing should become clear that bhakti is meant for pleasing the Lord, not just for escaping from something. Otherwise, it will become more of a escaping response, escaping kind of mentality that I just want to escape from this world. So I want to practice bhakti. But we are not here like this. The yogis and gyanis, Prabhupada says, we are not here to get liberation or break from this cycle. We want to engage in the Lord's service. That's our thing. So one is the detachment, another is attachment to some activity. We should render some service, do some activities, fill our life with so much stuff in Krishna consciousness. So naturally, we won't have time to think about all that what is there outside. So that also is very, very important. Otherwise, we'll just go in that loop of, okay, thinking about I want to get out, but then where to go, that thing also to come. We should develop our attachment or engage ourselves more and more in devotional service. That. Okay. ठीक है, then we pause. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की श्रील प्रभुपाद की